The council chamber was the largest room Jiho had ever seen. It stretched so wide that the far walls disappeared into a soft blue mist. Above them, a dome of pure crystal showed the stars beyond, millions of them, watching silently. Around the circular floor, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and some were made of what looked like living crystal or smoke. Their translator devices hummed softly, turning alien languages into words everyone could understand. Ko stood in the center of the chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. His uniform was crisp and dark blue, with the silver emblem of Earth on his shoulder. Beside him, Commander Du-Yun stood equally still, though he could see the tension in her jaw. They were the only two humans in a room filled with beings who had traveled the stars for thousands of years before humanity even invented the wheel. Ambassador. Quolan rose from his seat. He was tall and reptilian, his scales a deep green that caught the light. His species, the Velthari, were one of the oldest members of the Galactic Council. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. "We gather today to address a matter of galactic security," Quolan said, his eyes fixed on Jai-Ho. "The human species has been part of this council for only 50 years. In that short time, they have caused more disruption than any species in recent memory." Jai-Ho said nothing. He had known this was coming. Quolan continued, walking slowly around the chamber floor. Human mercenaries ended the Phyraxian Civil War in 3 days. A conflict that had lasted 40 years, resolved through violence and aggression. Human traders have undercut established trade agreements, destroying economic partnerships that took centuries to build. Human explorers enter quarantine zones despite clear warnings, risking contamination and disaster. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. A Phyraxian representative, small and covered in blue feathers, chirped loudly. "Humans are too emotional. They make decisions based on feelings, not logic." Another voice joined in, this one from a Nethri delegate who resembled a floating jellyfish made of light. "They expand too quickly. 17 star systems claimed in just 20 years. They move like a plague, consuming resources and space." A Caldurian insect, like with multiple arms, clicked its mandibles together. "They are obsessed with war. Their entertainment simulates combat. Their children play war games. Every human ship is armed beyond reasonable defense requirements. They prepare constantly for conflict." The accusations continued, each species adding their complaints. Jiho listened to all of them, his face calm. He had heard these arguments before, in smaller meetings and private conversations, but now they were being presented formally, with the full weight of the council behind them. Finally, High Arbiter Thalman raised one crystalline hand. Silence fell immediately. Thalman had presided over the council for 3 centuries. His body was made of translucent crystal that pulsed with soft light, and his voice sounded like wind chimes. "Ambassador Jiho of Earth," Thalman said, "you may present your defense." Jiho stepped forward. He looked around at the assembled species, meeting as many eyes as he could. Some looked away. Others stared back with what might have been pity or disgust. "The Phyraxian Civil War was killing thousands every day," Jiho said, his voice steady. "Both sides asked for our help. We ended the killing and saved millions of lives. Yes, we used force, but only after every peaceful option had failed for 40 years. He turned slowly, addressing different sections of the chamber. "Our traders offer competitive prices and quality goods. We do not undercut through deception, but through efficiency and hard work. Our expansion has been into unclaimed space, systems that no other species wanted or could use. We have violated no territorial agreements. And our military preparedness," Jiho's voice grew firmer, "is for defense. We have never started a war with any council species. Every weapon we build, every soldier we train, is to protect our people and our allies." Yun added, "Speaking for the first time, humanity has contributed scientists, engineers, medical personnel, and resources to council projects. We have helped build stations, cure diseases, and explore dangerous regions that others avoided. We have earned our place here. Quilon laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Earned your place? You are children playing with fire in a library. Dangerous, unpredictable children who will eventually burn down everything around them. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Jiho felt Dayun stiffen beside him, but he touched her arm gently. Stay calm, the gesture said. High Arbiter Thalman spoke again. The motion before the council is clear. Humanity will be banned from all council trade routes, military alliances, and diplomatic functions. They will have 30 days to withdraw all personnel and close all embassies. All votes must be cast now. The chamber filled with light as each species registered their vote through their personal consoles. Jiho watched the display above them, showing the tally in real time. The numbers climbed quickly, 43 votes for the ban. 2 abstentions. Only the Korathi, a warrior species who respected strength above all else, voted against it. The motion passes, Thalman announced. Humanity is hereby banned from council space. Ambassador Jiho, you have 30 days to comply with this decree. The chamber erupted in conversation. Some species seemed pleased, others uncomfortable. A few looked relieved, as if a dangerous threat had been contained. G-Ho stood in the center of it all, perfectly still. Dayun's hand moved toward her sidearm instinctively, a habit from her military days, but she stopped herself. They were diplomats now, not soldiers. High Arbiter, Jiho said loudly, cutting through the noise. I request permission to present one piece of evidence before we accept this judgment. The chamber quieted. Thalman tilted his crystalline head, light refracting through his body. The vote is concluded, Ambassador. The decision is final. I understand, Ho replied. But I ask for this courtesy nonetheless. One piece of evidence. 5 minutes of your time. Thalman was silent for a long moment. Then he said, Very well. Though it will change nothing, we will extend this courtesy. Proceed. Jiho nodded to Yun. She pulled a small device from her pocket and activated it. A holographic projector rose from the floor in the center of the chamber, its light bright and clear. What you are about to see, Jiho said quietly, his voice somehow reaching every corner of the vast room, is why humanity prepares for war? He pressed a button, and the hologram flickered to life. The time stamp appeared first, glowing in the air, 8 months ago. The location tag read, Frontier Outpost Gamma 7. Human Outer Territories. The laughter in the chamber died completely as the video began to play. The hologram showed a small research station floating in the darkness of space. It orbited a frozen moon, the surface below covered in blue-white ice that sparkled under the distant sun. The station itself was modest, built from connected modules that formed a rough cross shape. Lights glowed warmly from the windows, and small maintenance drones drifted around the exterior. Performing routine repairs inside, a woman appeared on the screen. She sat at a desk cluttered with data tablets and sample containers. Her name tag read Dr. Hay1, and she was smiling as she recorded her daily log. Day 47 of the ice microorganism study, she said cheerfully, holding up a small vial filled with glowing blue liquid. We've discovered that the organisms can survive temperatures down to -200 degrees. They're absolutely fascinating. They seem to communicate through chemical signals we've never seen before. Behind her, through a window, other researchers moved about their work. Someone laughed at a joke. Another person floated past in the low gravity, carrying a container of samples. It was peaceful, ordinary, the kind of scene that could have been from any research station anywhere in the galaxy. The council members watched, confused about what this had to do with anything. Dr. Hay1 continued talking about her research, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. The timestamp in the corner showed the date and time, tick-tocking forward second by second. Then the alarms began. The soft yellow lights in the station suddenly turned red. A harsh siren blared through the speakers. Dr. Hay1's smile vanished. She jumped from her seat and ran toward the command center, the camera following her perspective. In the command center, a young woman named Minji sat at the communications console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Unknown vessel detected at system's edge," she said quickly. "Distance, 30 million kilometers and closing. Configuration unknown. Size?" She paused, checking her readings again. "Size is approximately 50 times our mass." The main view screen showed the approaching vessel. Several council members leaned forward in their seats. Their earlier amusement completely gone, the ship was massive and wrong. Its hull was not made of metal or composite materials. It looked organic, like something grown rather than built. The surface was dark and covered in ridges that might have been armor or scarred tissue. The shape was asymmetrical, bulging in some places and narrow in others, with no clear front or back. Security Chief Taeyang entered the command center, his prosthetic arm whirring softly as he moved. He was older than the others, with gray hair and scars on his face that spoke of past battles. "Raise shields," he ordered, "and send a distress signal on all frequencies." Minji worked frantically, attempting contact in 17 languages. No response. "Sending distress signal now. Nearest human military outpost is 3 days away. Nearest council patrol is 6 days away. Keep trying to contact them," Taeyang said. "Maybe they don't recognize our signals." But the vessel did not slow down. It did not respond to any hails, any greetings, any warnings. It simply moved forward with terrible purpose. Dr. Hae-won stood at another console, running scans. "I'm not detecting any standard engine signatures. No fusion reactors, no antimatter cores. Whatever propels that thing, it's nothing I've ever seen." The unknown vessel reached weapons range. For a moment, nothing happened. The station held its breath, then the alien ship fired. The hologram showed what happened next in brutal detail. Massive projectiles, glowing with sickly green energy, streaked across the dark space. They were not lasers or missiles, but something else. Something that seemed almost alive as they flew. The first impacts hit the station's shields. The barriers flared bright blue, trying to absorb the energy, but they failed in seconds. The projectiles punched through and slammed into the hull. Explosions bloomed across 3 sections of the station. The hologram split into multiple camera feeds now, showing different perspectives. In one feed, a corridor suddenly opened to space, and 4 people were sucked out before emergency doors could seal. In another, an entire laboratory exploded, killing everyone inside instantly. The council chamber was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Taeyang's voice came through the chaos. "All personnel, emergency protocol 7. Get to the core section now." People ran through the corridors, some helping wounded colleagues, others carrying emergency equipment. A researcher named Seung-min paused long enough to grab his personal recorder. His voice shook as he spoke into it. "Unknown hostile. Massive vessel. They're attacking without warning, without communication. Dear God, what are these things?" The alien ship moved closer. It was so large that it filled the entire view screen now, blotting out the stars. Then it did something that made several council members gasp. The vessel attached itself to the station. Organic-looking tendrils extended from its hull and latched onto the human outpost like a parasite attaching to a host. The tendrils began to cut through the outer hull, and the sound of tearing metal echoed through the speakers. "They're boarding us," someone whispered in the video. Taeyang gathered the remaining security personnel. There were only 3 of them, including Officer Bo-ra, a young woman who had joined the security team just 6 months earlier. They carried plasma rifles and positioned themselves in a corridor leading to the core section where the survivors had gathered. "Whatever comes through that breach," Taeyang said, checking his rifle, "we hold this position. We buy time for the others." The breach opened. Atmosphere rushed out in a cloud of frozen vapor. And then they came through. The creatures were nightmares. They stood 8 feet tall on 4 legs, but they could rear up on their hind legs when needed. Their bodies were covered in armored plates that looked like black chitin, scarred and pitted as if from countless battles. They had too many joints in their limbs, bending in ways that hurt to watch. Their heads were eyeless, smooth and featureless except for a vertical slit that might have been a mouth, but they moved with terrible, intelligence and coordination. 3 of them entered together, spreading out to cover different angles without making a sound. Taeyang fired first. His plasma bolt hit one creature in the chest. The armor glowed white-hot, and the creature stumbled, but it did not fall. It took 3 more shots from both him and Biora to finally bring it down. By then, more were coming through. "Fall back," Taeyang shouted. "Controlled retreat." The security team backed down the corridor, firing constantly. The creatures pursued them relentlessly. When Biora's rifle overheated, she dropped it and drew her combat knife without hesitation. The hologram showed her last stand. She killed 3 of the creatures with her knife, moving with trained precision, striking at gaps in their armor. But there were too many. They overwhelmed her, and the camera feed from her helmet went dark. Taeyang and the last security officer made it to a heavy blast door. They sealed it behind them, breathing hard. Through the door they could hear the creatures on the other side, their bladed limbs scraping against the metal. Inside the core section, 9 people remained alive. Dr. Haewon, Taeyang, Engineer Hyun-woo, Medic Ji-woo, Junior Researcher Subin, and 4 others. They were all that was left of the 23 people who had lived and worked on Outpost Gamma-7. Hyun-woo worked desperately on a damaged console. The main distress beacon was hit in the first attack. I'm trying to repair it, boost the signal. If I can just... His fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power, bypassing damaged circuits. The blast door began to buckle. The creatures were cutting through it. "Hyun-woo?" Dr. Haewon said softly. "Almost got it," he muttered. "Just need another minute." But they did not have a minute. The door exploded inward. Hyun-woo looked up just as a creature lunged through. He hit one final button on his console, and the distress beacon signal amplified across the entire sector. Then the creature was on him. The remaining survivors fled deeper into the core section, into the central laboratory. Taeyang sealed the final door and turned to face them. His prosthetic arm was damaged, sparking slightly. His face was covered in cuts and burns. 5 people left. Just 5. Dr. Haewon picked up a data recorder and turned it on. She looked directly into the camera, and her voice was calm despite the terror in her eyes. Dr. Haewon held the recorder steady, even though her hands wanted to shake. Behind her, the others worked frantically to barricade the door with equipment and furniture. The scraping sounds from the other side were getting louder. The creatures were almost through. "To whoever finds this," she said clearly, "we don't know what these things are or where they came from. They don't communicate. They don't negotiate. They don't want anything except to kill and consume." She paused, listening to the terrible sounds. "We managed to scan their vessel before they destroyed most of our equipment. The trajectory suggests they came from beyond the outer rim, from the dark space between galaxies. And based on the wear on their ship, the battle damage we saw on their hull, I don't think we're the first ones they've found." Medic Ji-woo was crying quietly in the corner, trying to treat a severe burn on Subin's arm. Taeyang checked his rifle one last time. Even though everyone knew it had maybe 10 shots left, Dr. Haewon smiled sadly at the camera. "My daughter Young, he is probably in school right now. Back on Earth, she's 7 years old and wants to be a scientist like her mom." Her voice cracked slightly. "Tell her I love her. Tell her I was brave at the end. And tell Command." She looked at the buckling door. "Tell them we bought as much time as we could." The door exploded inward. The creatures poured through like a dark wave. The hologram went to static. In the council chamber, no one spoke. The silence was absolute. Even the soft humming of translator devices seemed too loud. Then the hologram flickered back to life. The time stamp jumped forward 72 hours. A human battle group dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 4 destroyers cut through space in formation, their hulls sleek and bristling with weapons. 2 carriers followed, larger and more heavily armored. And in the center, the flagship dreadnought Indomitable, a massive vessel that dwarfed all the others. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Jae-sung sat in his command chair. He was in his 60s, with short gray hair and a face carved by years of military service. His uniform was immaculate, his posture straight despite the weight he carried. "Scan the system," he ordered. His voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. The tactical officer worked his console. "Sir, detecting the research station. No life signs. And sir, there's a massive unknown vessel attached to it." The view screen showed what remained of Outpost Gamma 7. The alien ship was still there, still feeding on the dead station like a parasite. "Open all channels," Jae-sung said. "All languages, all frequencies. Standard first contact protocols?" The communications officer worked quickly. "Channels open, sir. Transmitting greetings in 43 languages. No response." "Try again," Jae-sung ordered. "Warn them to withdraw from the station. Inform them they are in human territory and have attacked our personnel." Still no response, Admiral. Jae-sung watched the alien vessel on the screen. It had not moved, had not acknowledged their presence at all. "Send one final message. Tell them if they do not withdraw, we will consider their actions an act of war." Silence. The alien ship ignored them completely. Then it detached from the station and turned toward the battle group. "Battle stations," Jae-sung said calmly. "All hands to combat positions. Launch all fighters." Alarms rang throughout the fleet. Thousands of personnel moved to their stations with practiced efficiency. The carrier bays opened and 120 fighters poured out like angry insects. Flight leader Dong Hyan's voice came over the command channel, coordinating the attack wings. "Alpha Wing, target the forward sections. Bravo Wing, hit the port side. Charlie Wing, you're with me on the starboard approach. Watch for point defense systems." The destroyers formed a firing line, their railguns charging. These were massive magnetic accelerators that could launch tungsten penetrators at incredible speeds. When they fired, the rounds would hit with the force of small nuclear weapons. The alien vessel opened. Fire first. The bioenergetic projectiles that had destroyed the research station now targeted the warships. The lead destroyer, Valor, raised its shields and tried to evade, but the projectiles tracked its movements with impossible precision. They hit the Valor's shields and tore through them like paper. The destroyer's hull ruptured in a dozen places. Secondary explosions rippled along its length. 300 crew members died in the first 10 seconds, but the human fleet did not retreat. The remaining destroyers opened fire. Their railguns hammered the alien vessel with round after round of tungsten penetrators. Each impact created massive explosions, blowing chunks of organic armor into space. The alien ship was huge, but the concentrated firepower was damaging it. The fighters swarmed around the alien vessel like wasps around a bear. They were too small for the main weapons to target effectively, so they focused on what their tactical AI identified as weapon nodes and sensor clusters. Flight leader Dong Hyan led his wing directly into the heaviest fire. "Target that pulsing section," he commanded. "Looks like it might be a power relay." "All missiles, I fire on my mark." 3, 2, 1, mark. 20 fighters fired their missiles simultaneously. The explosions created a chain reaction that tore a massive hole in the alien ship's side. "Good hit," someone shouted over the channel. "We're hurting it." But the alien vessel was fighting back. Its weapons adapted, learning to track the smaller fighters. 2 were destroyed in quick succession. Their pilots unable to evade, the Indomitable moved forward, positioning itself between the alien vessel and the carriers. Captain Yoonji, Jae-sung's second in command, stood at her station monitoring damage reports. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, she reported. "Sealing emergency bulkheads. Shields at 40% and dropping." "Maintain position," Jae-sung ordered. "All destroyers, concentrate fire on the same target area. We need to breach their armor." The human ships worked with perfect coordination. All their weapons focused on a single section of the alien vessel's hull. The combined firepower was tremendous. Railgun rounds, missiles, energy weapons, everything humanity had developed for war, all hitting the same spot. The alien armor began to fail. Cracks appeared, then widened. Finally, the section collapsed inward, exposing the interior of the ship. Strange organic structures pulsed with sickly light. Fluid leaked out, freezing instantly in the vacuum. "We've got a breach," Yunji announced. "Hull integrity compromised in target sector." Jae-sung leaned forward. This was the moment. "Bring us in closer. Charge the main gun." The bridge crew looked at him in shock. Closer meant point-blank range with a vessel that had already destroyed one destroyer and severely damaged another. "Sir," Yunji said carefully, "at that range, if they explode—" "I know," Jae-sung interrupted. "Charge the main gun. Full power." The indomitable spinal-mounted mass accelerator was its most powerful weapon. It ran the entire length of the ship, a massive magnetic rail that could launch a projectile with enough force to crack a planet's crust. But it took time to charge, and it had to be fired at close range for maximum effect. The dreadnought moved closer to the alien vessel. Enemy fire pounded against its shields and armor. More hull breaches opened up. More crew members died, but the main gun continued charging. 90%? The weapons officer called out. 95. 100%. Main gun charged and ready. Jae-sung watched the alien vessel on the screen. It was turning toward them now, gathering energy for what looked like a devastating attack. "Fire," he said quietly. The Indomitable shuddered as the main gun discharged. The projectile, a solid core of dense metal weighing several tons, launched at a significant fraction of light speed. At this range, the impact was instantaneous. The alien vessel's hull exploded. The breach widened catastrophically, tearing through internal structures. The strange organic systems inside ruptured, and the ship began to break apart. But even dying, the alien vessel fought back. Sections of it tried to self-destruct. Pods launched from hidden bays, heading toward the human ships like missiles. "Point defense, fire at will," Yunji commanded. "Do not let those pods reach us. Every weapon that could track the pods open fire. Lasers, railguns, missiles, everything." The pods exploded one by one, destroyed before they could reach their targets. The alien vessel broke into 3 large pieces, each one venting atmosphere and fluids. Secondary explosions rippled through the debris. Whatever had powered that massive ship was dying, and it was taking the whole vessel with it. When the battle finally ended, the silence was deafening. The alien vessel was nothing but debris now, pieces of organic hull and strange technology floating in the darkness. The human fleet remained, battered but victorious. Admiral Jae-sung sat in his command chair, staring at the damage reports scrolling across his screen. 2 destroyers crippled, 1 carrier badly damaged. Hull breaches on the Indomitable across 7 decks. And the casualties. "Final count," he said quietly. Captain Unji checked her console, her voice heavy. 1,847 dead. Another 600 wounded, 32 critical. Jae-sung closed his eyes for a moment. Nearly 2,000 people. 2,000 men and women who would never go home. 2,000 families who would receive the worst news of their lives. And the research station? He asked, though he already knew the answer. "No survivors, sir. All 23 personnel confirmed dead." Jae-sung stood slowly, feeling every year of his age. He walked to the view screen and looked at the wreckage of Outpost Gamma 7 just visible in the distance. Somewhere in that twisted metal were the bodies of Dr. Hae-won and the others. People who had come out here to study frozen microorganisms, to expand human knowledge, to do peaceful work in the darkness of space. "Recover their bodies," he ordered. "Every single one. I want them brought home." "Yes, sir." Jae-sung turned to the communications officer. "Record my report for command, and make sure it uploads to the council database as well." The officer nodded, activating the recording system. A light blinked on, indicating Jae-sung was being recorded. He looked directly into the camera, his face showing the exhaustion and grief he felt. "This is Admiral Jae-sung of the Human Defense Fleet. We have engaged and destroyed an unknown hostile entity in the Gamma 7 system. The enemy vessel was approximately 50 times the mass of a standard destroyer and utilized biological-based technology we have never encountered before." He paused, gathering his thoughts. Analysis of the wreckage and trajectory data suggests this vessel came from extragalactic space. We recovered no survivors from Frontier Outpost Gamma 7. All 23 personnel are confirmed killed in action. They died defending humanity's borders and buying time for help to arrive. Jae-sung looked down at a datapad showing the course. The alien vessel had been traveling before it encountered the human outpost. The numbers told a disturbing story. Based on the trajectory the hostile vessel was following before encountering our outpost, it was headed directly toward Council space. He looked back at the camera. Specifically, it was on course for the Valkyrie home system. If our people had not been there, if Outpost Gamma 7 had not detected and engaged this threat, this vessel would have reached Valkyrie space in approximately 6 weeks. He let that information sink in. We are uploading all combat data, xenobiological analysis, and trajectory projections to the Council database. Whatever these things are, they're coming from the dark between galaxies, and they are hostile to all biological life. Command needs to see this. The Council needs to see this. The recording ended. Jae-sung turned away from the camera and looked at the stars beyond the view screen. Somewhere out there, beyond the rim of the galaxy, something was coming. And humanity stood in its path. The hologram in the council chamber froze on Admiral Jae-sung's face. Tired and determined, Ambassador Jiho let the silence stretch. Every being in the chamber was motionless, processing what they had just witnessed. The earlier atmosphere of amusement and superiority had vanished completely. Finally, High Arbiter Thalman spoke, his crystalline voice quieter than before. "How many more of these creatures have you encountered?" "We call them devourers," Ko replied. "And we've had 17 incidents in the past 8 months. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. G-Ho continued, his voice steady and factual. "We've destroyed 12 of their vessels. 3 outposts were lost before we could respond. 2 incidents are ongoing as we speak. Our fleets are engaged in combat right now, while we stand here debating whether humans are too aggressive." He activated another display showing a star map. Red markers appeared along humanity's outer territories, each one representing an encounter with the Devourers. They formed a rough arc like a wave approaching the galaxy. "These attacks are not random," Dayun said, stepping forward. "The pattern is clear. They're probing our defenses, testing our strength. And we were the first species they encountered because human space extends the farthest into the galactic edge." She looked around at the assembled representatives. "We are the barrier between you and what's coming from the dark. Every ship you called excessively armed, every station you called aggressive expansion, every combat drill you found disturbing. All of it was because we knew something was out there. We were preparing for this." Ambassador Quailon rose slowly from his seat. The proud Veltheri looked shaken, his scales seeming duller than before. "Why did you not inform the Council of this threat?" Yun's expression hardened. "We did." She brought up another display, showing official reports filed by human diplomats. 3 months ago. 6 months ago. 8 months ago. Each time we reported contact with unknown hostile forces. Each time we requested Council assistance in investigating and defending against this threat. The reports appeared on the hologram, and below them the Council's responses. Dismissed as unverified. Exaggerated to gain military advantages. Paranoid human aggression seeing threats where none existed. "You called us warlike," Dayun said, her voice sharp with controlled anger. "You said we were too focused on conflict, too quick to see enemies. But we were right. We are right. And while you debated our civility, 4,300 human citizens died defending the galaxy's borders." Ho placed a hand on Dayun's shoulder, a gentle reminder to stay calm. He turned back to High Arbiter Thalman. "Every human ship you criticized was built to fight the Devourers," Jiho said. "Every outpost you called unnecessary was established to create an early warning network. Every weapon, every soldier, every strategic preparation was for this threat. The threat that has already killed thousands of our people while you dismissed our warnings." A small blue-feathered Phyraxian stood up, their voice trembling. "But surely, Surely this can be negotiated? All life seeks to survive. Perhaps we can communicate, find common ground. Did you watch the video? Ian asked bluntly. Dr. Haywon tried 43 languages. She offered greetings, warnings, pleas for communication. The Devourers don't want to talk. They don't want territory or resources. They want to kill everything that lives. The Nethri delegate, the floating jellyfish of light, pulsed with distressed colors. What do we do? How do we fight such things? You don't, Jeho said simply. That's why you have us? He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes with as many representatives as he could. High Arbiter, the Council has voted. We will respect your decision. Humanity will withdraw from Council space within 30 days as decreed. Confusion rippled through the chamber. However, Jeho continued, I want everyone here to understand what that means. We will contract our borders back toward our core systems. The 17 outposts and 4 colonies that currently form a defensive perimeter protecting the Council's eastern approach will be abandoned. He pulled up the map again, showing the human defensive line. These stations will be dismantled or destroyed to prevent the Devourers from using them. We will not leave functional facilities for the enemy. The map animated, showing the human withdrawal. As the defensive line pulled back, a gap opened. A gap that led directly into Council space. Within 6 months, He said quietly, the Devourers will reach the former human territories. Within 8 months, they will reach Council space. And humanity will be too far away and too banned to help. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions, accusations, pleas. Some demanded humanity stay and defend them. Others insisted this was manipulation, fear-mongering to reverse the vote. A few sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. Ambassador Quolon stood again, his voice cutting through the chaos. You would abandon us to this threat? Ian turned to him, her eyes cold. You voted to abandon us? 43-2. You made it very clear that you don't want humanity's protection, our trade, or our presence. So we're giving you exactly what you asked for. We'll leave, Jeho added. We'll pull back to our own space and defend our own people. The galaxy will be free of dangerous, unpredictable humans. Isn't that what you wanted? The Korathi representative, war leader Throck, stood for the first time. He was massive, even for his species, with dark red scales and scars covering his arms and chest. His people valued honor above all else, and his voice rumbled like an avalanche. The humans fight with honor, Throck declared, his words echoing through the chamber. They bled for strangers. They held the line against darkness while this council debated politics and trade agreements. You shame yourselves today? Several representatives looked away. Unable to meet the warrior's fierce gaze, a younger delegate, a crystalline being similar to Thalman but smaller and brighter, spoke hesitantly. Perhaps we were hasty. The evidence is compelling. Maybe we should reconsider? Reconsider? A Caldurian clicked its mandibles angrily. This is clearly manipulation. Humans show us horror and expect us to beg for their protection. It's a trick. A trick? Yun's voice was dangerously quiet. She pulled up another file. Here are the names of the 4,300 humans who died fighting the Devourers. Every single one. Their ages, their families, their last messages home. Are they a trick too? The hologram filled with names and faces. Young and old, men and women, soldiers and scientists. Each one had died holding the line. My sister is on that list, Diane continued, her voice cracking slightly. Ship's engineer on the destroyer Valor, she was 26 years old. She died buying time for the Indomitable to charge its main gun. Was her death a trick? The chamber fell silent again. The names continued scrolling past, a river of sacrifice. High Arbiter Thalman raised his hand and the hologram paused. The ancient being's crystal body pulsed with complex patterns of light, showing deep thought and perhaps shame. Ambassador Jeho? Thalman said slowly, I have presided over this council for 3 centuries. I have seen species rise and fall. I have witnessed wars, plagues, and disasters, but I have never been more wrong than I was today. He stood, his crystalline form catching the light from the stars above. A species is measured not by its words in times of peace, but by its actions in times of war. We judged humanity for being warriors, for being prepared, for being vigilant. But those qualities are exactly what saved lives. Your lives, your vigilance, your willingness to fight. Thalmann looked around the chamber. Humanity has fought while we debated. Humanity has bled while we complained about their methods. Humanity has held the darkness at bay while we called them aggressive and dangerous. He turned back to Jeho. The council was wrong. I was wrong. I propose an immediate revote on the ban, followed by an emergency joint defense pact. Humanity should not stand alone against this threat. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species agreed immediately. Others argued, but the tone had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by fear and grudging respect. Ambassador Quillon stood again. He looked diminished somehow, his earlier pride gone. I seconded the motion to ban humanity. I called you dangerous children. He paused, the words difficult. I was wrong. The Velthari will vote to reverse the ban. One by one, other species stood and voiced their support. The Phyraxians, the Nethri, the Kaldurians, even those who had been most vocal against humanity now spoke in favor of reversing the decision. Finally, Thalmann called for order. The revote will commence. All those in favor of reversing the ban on humanity and establishing a joint defense pact, register your vote now. The chamber filled with light as votes were cast. This time, the result was different, 47 votes in favor. 0 against, unanimous. The ban is reversed, Thalmann announced. Humanity is welcomed back into the council with full honors. And furthermore, we establish the first unified galactic military command to face this threat together. Applause filled the chamber, but Jeho did not smile. Dayun looked at him questioningly. High Arbiter, Zhou said, his voice cutting through the celebration. We appreciate the gesture. But gestures won't stop the devourers. The applause died down. We don't need your thanks, Ho-Ho continued. We need your fleets. We need your resources. We need every species that can hold a weapon trained and ready. Because what you saw in that video was one ship. Just one. He pulled up a new display, showing deep space telescope data. The image was grainy and distant, but clear enough. Multiple large objects moving through the void between galaxies. Our long-range sensors have detected 17 more Devour vessels, Jeho said. And they're not alone. There's something bigger behind them. Something our telescopes can't quite resolve yet, still too far out in the dark. The image zoomed out, showing the scale. Behind the Devourer ships, there was a shadow. Something massive, so large it bent starlight around it. So yes, High Arbiter, Zhou said quietly. We'll fight beside you. We'll share our combat data, our tactical analysis, everything we've learned about the Devourers. Because when they come in force, there won't be human space or council space. There will only be survival or extinction. Thalmann's crystal form pulsed with determination. Then we will prepare. The Council proposes that Admiral Jae-sung be appointed Supreme Commander of the Combined Fleet Operations, with full authority to coordinate defense efforts across all species. Jeho glanced at Dayun, who nodded slightly. Admiral Jae-sung will accept, provided he has complete operational authority. No committee decisions in the middle of battle. No political debates when lives are at stake. Agreed, Thalmann said immediately. Whatever is needed for victory. The council session continued for hours, hammering out details of the alliance. Fleet deployments, resource allocation, communication protocols, research sharing. Every species contributed what they could. The Korathi offered their warriors, fierce and experienced. The Nethri provided advanced shield technology. The Kaldurians had shipbuilding facilities that could triple production. Even the Velthari, swallowing their pride, offered their ancient strategic knowledge. As the chamber finally began to empty, War Leader Thrak approached Jeho and Dayun. The massive Korathi bowed his head slightly, a gesture of deep respect. Your people understand war, Throck rumbled. My warriors will be honored to fight beside humans. The honor is ours, Ho replied. Returning the bow, when they were alone in the observation deck overlooking the station, Diane finally let her composure slip. She leaned against the viewport, looking out at the stars. Do you think we can win? She asked quietly. Jiho stood beside her, following her gaze. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of the galaxy, the Devourers were coming. And behind them, that shadow, that thing too large to fully comprehend. I think, he said slowly, that humanity has spent its entire history fighting impossible odds. We faced extinction a dozen times, from ice ages to plagues to our own stupidity. And we're still here. He smiled slightly. We survived because we never gave up. We adapted, we learned, we fought when we had to. And now we've got 46 other species backing us up. The Devourers won't know what hit them. You managed a small laugh. You really believe that? I have to, Jiho said. Because the alternative is unthinkable. They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. Outside the station, human and alien ships were already beginning to coordinate. Destroyers from 3 different species practicing formation flying. Engineers sharing technical data. Scientists analyzing Devour biology together. It was imperfect and chaotic. Species that had never worked together now had to trust each other completely. Ancient rivalries had to be set aside. Different languages, different cultures, different ways of thinking about war. But it was happening. You know what the irony is? Daeyun said. They'd banned us for being too warlike. And now the thing that might save them is that we were exactly warlike enough. Ho nodded. Humanity has always been good at war. It's in our nature, written into our history. Every human culture has warriors, has stories of standing against the dark. We just had to learn to direct that instinct outward, to protect instead of conquer. A message came through on Zhao's communicator. Admiral Jaesung reporting from the Indomitable. The combined fleet's first joint exercise was scheduled for tomorrow. 47 species, hundreds of ships, all training to fight as one. History is watching us, Daeyun said softly. Either we'll be remembered as the generation that united the galaxy and saved everything, or we'll be the last chapter before extinction. Then let's make sure it's the first one, Jiho replied. Tell the Admiral we're ready. Tell him humanity stands with the Council, now and always. He looked out at the assembled fleet, ships from across the galaxy gathering to face a threat from beyond it. It was beautiful in a way, terrible and magnificent. The galaxy united at last, not through politics or philosophy, but through the simple need to survive. And at the front of that fleet, leading the way into darkness, were the humans. The species everyone had called too aggressive, too warlike, too dangerous, the species that refused to give up. Even when facing nightmares from the void, the species that would fight and bleed, and die to protect strangers who had tried to ban them just hours before, because that was what humans did. They stood in the breach. They held the line. And they never, ever surrendered. Outside the window, the stars shone bright against the darkness. And somewhere beyond them, the Devourers were coming, but they would find the galaxy ready. They would find 47 species standing together. And at the front of that alliance, weapons ready and determination unshakable. They would find humanity. Let them come, Ho thought. Let them see what happens when you threaten the galaxy. Let them learn what the Council had just discovered. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was warlike. Humanity was aggressive and unpredictable and violent. And that was exactly what the galaxy needed.